Welcome to episode 9 of the Marketing Operators podcast. Today, we've got a great one. We've got a special guest, Ashton Wall from GateMaker, who formerly was a CMO of ColourPop Cosmetics, where they grew to $300 million a year without spending $1 on ads. So in case you're wondering how to do that, that's what Ashton is going to drop some bombs on today. She's the smartest person I know in influencer marketing. We personally work with her and her agency, GateMaker, at Jones Road. So we've asked her to come on just to drop some bombs. Ashton has plenty of hot takes, loves talking about attribution, her hot takes on PR, where influencers should report in an org. This is going to be a really great one. We picked her brain at the end of it, just to actually learn some strategies that she recommends for Jones Road, Hexclad, and Ridge. So I think you guys are going to get a lot out of this. And as always, thank you so much to our sponsors, Motion, Richpanel, Haus, and Aftersell.
So I'm constantly asking my teams the same question. I'm saying, how do we make ads that convert? What's the content? What's the creative? What's our strategy so that we can make ads that convert users into customers? Luckily, our premier sponsor is here to help, Motion. They are a creative analytics tool. We use them. Hexclad uses them. Jones Road uses them. Viore, True Classic, all of the big 9-figure heavy hitter D2C brands rely on Motion to give their teams more analytical rigor when it comes to creating content. And when they're asking themselves, how do we create ads that convert? Motion's here to help even more. They've got a weekly Thursday seminar called Make Ads That Convert, aptly named. They've got some great people, Morella Carespi, Dara Denny, Jess Bachman, Savannah Sanchez, all people that I've looked up to for a long time when it comes to performance creative. And they'll be teaching some of the best in class practices and strategies when it comes to creating ads. So make sure to join at motionapp.com. They've got a few sessions left. And for the ones that you have missed, there are recordings that you can check out. So make sure you do. And thanks for listening.
All right, welcome to episode 9 of Marketing Operators podcast. Today's a really fun one. We have an amazing guest. I think that, our second guest this season. We got some really good feedback on the one with Dave, and super excited. Today we have Ashton Wall, the influencer expert, the smartest influencer person I know, to teach all of us a little bit about influencers. So welcome, Ashton.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me. I caught the tail end of that, and it sounded like a very kind intro. Thanks, Cody.
It was. It was. Now, Ashton is much too humble to introduce herself, so I will do a little bit for her. Ashton was the CMO at ColourPop and was wildly successful there, growing that brand. I'm pretty sure it was 9 figures, but grew that rapidly and is now the co-founder of GateMaker, an influencer agency that works with some of the best beauty brands, including Jones Road Beauty. So firsthand experience working with Ashton. Our story. One thing I'll share. Like, you originally reached out, Twitter DM'd me, when you guys were launching, and you didn't pitch at all. Like, you obviously told me what you were doing, but just connected, and we kind of just stayed in touch after that. When we had some turnover, I reached out. We did a mentor pass call. And like, I could just see, like, the way I look at Facebook Ads Manager was like how you looked at Tribe, which is what we use for software, and just like how well you knew it. But you also have a paid media background. Is that right?
That's right.
Which is cool. So I think you look at things very similar to how we do, at least fun, like principally, but obviously it's very different for the influencer side. So I'm very excited. I know that you've, Connor from Ridge as well, and you've helped them a little bit. So I'm super excited just to have you share some of your wisdom as well with us.
Oh, thanks. I'm so excited to be here, and thanks for accommodating the Paris time zone.
Of course. Absolutely. All right. So if you listen, we like to kick things off with a little bit of a test of the week. We usually just share one thing that we are, testing, what we did, what we learned from it, just so people can share. And so, going to put you on the spot. Do you have anything that you've done recently, a test that you guys have ran? And tell us about it.
Yeah. This is like one of my favorite tests that we continue to run quarterly with many of our clients. But so one of the GateMaker philosophies is we're kind of anti-brief. So we believe that the work in influencer lies in with selecting the right partners. And, respectfully, I don't know that most marketing managers know content better than people that have hundreds and thousands, if not millions of followers. We kind of pick a painter, if you will, and let them paint. But we get a lot of pushback on that from our brands, and rightfully so. I think when you're paying money for a creator, you want them to hit the certain talking points, etc. So we ran this test recently with one of our largest brands where we took a high 6-figure monthly budget, and we broke it into two and said, okay, for every creator that we're brokering content with this month, we are going to have one piece of content that's non-briefed and one piece of content that's briefed, and we want to see how it performs on impressions, views, EMV, etc. When I tell you, it was like not even close to the performance of non-briefed content versus briefed content, like sometimes 5x, 10x the performance of non-briefed. It was really, really interesting. And this is, like I said, something that we continue to run quarterly. We continue to see these results. And it's just something I'm really excited about. And I'd love to run that with our brands.
Non-briefed, like, hey, here's a product. That's it. Make some shit. That was all.
Yes. Yes.
Wow. And this is like earned.
This is the reaction I get every time. Like, really?
This is earned. Like, is this like paid whitelisted content, or is this purely like earned media sponsored content?
Purely earned media sponsored content, but we always bake in rights for usage, and that non-briefed content that performed really well goes into paid, and it did just as well relative to the briefed content. So I think on that, I loved your reaction, Connor, because that's the reaction I get every time when I pitch this to my brands, especially when they're spending, $500,000, $600,000, which a lot of them in beauty do spend that on a monthly basis. So we just say, hey, the hard work is in selecting the creators, and let them go wild and let them talk about other brands. Like let even though you're paying for the content, let them talk about other brands. And I think I would say on average, it takes our clients maybe 6 months to let us do that. But when we finally get them to say, okay, we'll try it, amazing things happen.
I have so many questions.
I can't wait.
No, I'm just kind of curious, like, because we've gone back and forth. I also think like we sponsor a lot of creators, and I feel some like don't need briefs. So I've like totally been in that camp. And then some I'm like, yeah, these guys clearly need some help over here. But when we get to like USPs or like, differentiators or things like that, do you feel it's best to just not highlight those? It's not needed. You just want to let the painters paint?
Yeah. I mean, we will educate. So that's not to say that we don't educate and give some talking points just to help them out, because I don't expect them to do all of that recon on their own. But in terms of saying you must hit this USP, you must open with this hook, absolutely not. And one example I love to use with my brands, even though we're primarily beauty and a little bit of fashion, like those are the verticals we're in, is, Stanley, the Stanley Cup, like the actual cup that everyone's going nuts for. When you look at that content and how it overtook TikTok and YouTube and Instagram, and how, it's inescapable at this point. People are stealing them from Target, right? There's like crazy stories about it. But I don't think I've ever once seen a piece of content about a Stanley Cup that talks about any USP or any attributes about the cup, really. Like, it's just this like tertiary or secondary character in every video that you can't escape. And I think there's a lot to be learned from that when we apply to beauty and fashion.
Oh, that video where it was like in the truck that had burned, that wasn't a brief?
That was awesome.
That's awesome. Cool. All right. So yeah, I want to get into like just your general strategy, and maybe I can try to kind of pinpoint the question, but I would love just to kind of hear a breakdown of like how you view influencer. I think there's so many things in this world. There's influencers, there's creators, there's using creators for ads, there's using creators for earned media, there's, partnership deals, there's affiliate. Like, how do you view it and help people make sense of it? And yes, yeah, what's your general strategy when you work with brands?
Oh man. Okay, first of all, I have a question for you, because I'm pulling everybody on this. How do you define creator versus influencer? Like, how is Jones Road defining that internally? And Hexclad and Ridge, do you guys make that distinction?
I hope we are defining the same way. I think influencer is probably more of like, are we working with them for their audience, for an earned media value factor? I don't know if we're differentiating that much, and maybe we should, more on like if they truly have influence. But I think it's more of if we're working with somebody for their audience, they are an influencer, versus if we're working with someone purely for the content, whether that is, organic social or paid social, they're mainly a creator. Curious how you guys.
I would say the same. Yeah, if we're like working with someone purely because like, hey, we're one of the things we're doing right now is we're trying to go after and get more older talent in our ads, because that's a huge demo for us, but we don't do a good job of showing them in ads. That's pure ad curation. Like, I would say those folks are creators. Not that some of them don't have audiences, because they do, but just the deals that we have with them, there's no sort of organic deliverable. Sometimes it's like influencer and creator deal where they owe us an organic deliverable and content that we're going to use in ads. So that's kind of like hybrid. But yeah, Cody, I'd say we're defining it the same way, depending on the tactic that we're trying to roll out.
We almost exclusively use the word creator. So we use that like very generally. One distinction we've been making internally, and it's like in a very narrow capacity, and it comes from like influence, but we look at like Marquez Brownlee and Andrew Huberman and Tim Ferriss. You put like Gwyneth Paltrow, Oprah in that bucket, like people who truly have influence. We like to make that distinction because there are like people who, you know, consumers or users look up to make decisions that truly have influence on their lives. That is a slightly different and smaller bucket than just like general creators. But like I said, that's like, I'm talking about a pretty small percentage of people at that point. So it's a really narrow definition of like true influence.
All right. What's the real answer?
No, I mean, I don't know that I have the real answer, but I used to kind of exclusively use the term influencer. And I think that's just my background coming from ColourPop, but now everyone's a creator and some creators have influence. So I think we're kind of all saying the same thing. But that's kind of a hot topic inside GateMaker right now of how are we defining them? Okay. Sorry. To answer your question though, about general strategy and how I view influencer, that's a big one to start, Cody Cheese. I think, it's different for every brand, but what I would say of how I approach influencer and creators, for me, the most important thing is community size. So that's what I really, really care about when I look at each brand. So, yes, quality matters, and you should have some key, like marquee partnerships, depending on where you are in the stage of your brand and your budget. But I think the most important thing is how many people are talking about you on the internet that are a creator of some sorts, and monitoring that number month over month and monitoring that retention. That is like the cornerstone of everything that we do at GateMaker. And I don't think that's how most brands look at it, at least in fashion and beauty. So please keep in mind, I'm coming at it from a fashion and beauty lens, not any verticals outside of fashion and beauty. So that's really the cornerstone. And then, when you think about optimizing for community size and optimizing for kind of that post frequency and retention, I think there's a lot of things that most brands, when they start their influencer creator journey, care about that we don't necessarily care about. So things that are like, I only want to work with creators that are on brand. Like we could spend an hour just on that. Or I only want to work with creators that have X amount that have, this follower tier, or are in this vertical of content creation. We're pretty agnostic when it comes to those things. Like I would say those are like the second and third things that we look at. The first things that we look at are likelihood of post frequency and will they stay in the community.
And so your general strategy to grow that, obviously those are the metrics you look at. This is kind of a leading question because I know, but just break it down. Like, are you going and finding creators, influencers to pay? Are you giving organic things? Like, are you doing affiliate? Like, what's the general strategy when you start, if you were to come into Jones Road and say like, hey, this is what you guys should be doing, or going into another company?
Yeah. All of the above. And it just depends on kind of, I would say where we toggle the volume on each. So you have gifting, you have seeding. And I think those are two different things. So we can drill into that. And then paid capacity, and then affiliate. I would say affiliate is last for us. Like I never like to start a relationship as an affiliate. I know there are a lot of brands that do that, and that can work. I think in the beauty and fashion space specifically, when I look at like the arc of brands that got into influencer and creators early, I think beauty's most matured, if you will. So an affiliate code, I don't think is as enticing as it was maybe 5 years ago. That's not to say that you can't end the relationship there, but starting it there, I haven't seen a lot of success. But anyway, back to your original question, I think toggling the volumes is different for every brand. So like when I look at your brand like Jones Road, you have so much recognition with Bobby, so much credibility. Your product offering is so unique, and who you are targeting and how you speak about the product, that's not the case for everybody else. So you can get away with a lot deeper gifting and seeding than another brand that I think would have to go harder on paid relationships to start and get the word out. So whenever we take on a new brand, that answer really depends. Another example I would use is Rare Beauty. Like Rare Beauty, I don't think needs to pay anybody. Maybe they do now that it's been like 3 years, and I'm watching their EMV numbers and they're not as good as they were, but they're still very much rolling.
What's the difference between gifting and seeding? Because I don't even know if I know.
Yeah. Seeding is just mass getting the product in people's hands. Gifting, I think, comes with more of a premium unboxing experience or storytelling that comes along with it. So that's how we differentiate the two.
Okay, got it. Yeah, so at least for us, we are doing almost no paid content, and want to ask you some questions about it. But the general strategy is, and maybe you can elaborate on it, like find people to reach out every month. Every month find new people, kind of acquisition to reach out. A certain number of them will say yes, a certain number of them will post, and then just free stuff, and then we're doing our best creating strategies to help retain them. Because one thing that was really interesting to me when we first chatted, you shared some data. I think this was from Connor from Tribe, but like the relationships, the correlation between the strategies that the best EMV teams are doing, at least in beauty. It was very relationship heavy. It felt like it was very little paid as the correlation, and very little affiliate. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So I think that goes back to community size, right? So when I look at the top brands, and I'm defining top as community size or top 10 EMV. And I want to make sure we don't only talk about EMV this whole conversation, but for the beauty.
Can we define it for?
Yeah. Thank you. So EMV, earned media value. It's a term that's been around forever, and a term that many software companies use and define. I love Tribe Dynamics because they put everybody on an even playing field, and all of the data that they capture to me is the most accurate. They have competitors, but there's things that are left out, like Instagram stories, etc. So EMV is just rolling up impressions, engagement, views, likes, shares, etc., and then just kind of putting everyone on an apples to apples playing field. And
that's your main KPI for your programs, correct?
For me, like 70% of our clients, the other 30% we work with them to get them content for paid or affiliate, etc. Yeah, but 70% of our clients.
And so I would imagine a lot of people listening to this are more on from the performance marketing background, and they're maybe bootstrap companies looking for revenue. Like, is this something only larger established retail brands should be thinking about? Is that something that's important for everyone listening, even smaller brands?
I think so. I really think so. When I look at ColourPop in the early days, and I'm talking like 2014, 2015, so even before my time, I think I can say this, but ColourPop hit, I want to say 300 million in revenue without spending a single penny on Facebook or Google.
Which is wild.
Yeah, insane.
Yeah. So I think the proof is in the pudding there. Do I think that you could, replicate those results in 2024? I don't know, because they were really early to the space of social and influencer, but I think it's so important to connect with the community early on. And we have a lot of brands that we advise that we don't necessarily take on in an executional capacity of how they can do that, even if they just have a founder and a marketing coordinator. And in fact, when you look at some brands like, I love the founders of Glow Recipe. In the early days when they had no budget, Glow Recipe, I think, targeted 300 creators that they thought really would resonate with their brand. And the founders developed a relationship with all 300 of them and wrote them like a prescriptive skincare regimen that didn't just include Glow Recipe, which I love. Like, I love this idea of not just thinking the world revolves around your brand and you can't bring in other products to complement them. So they took those 300 people, it might've been 100 or 300, and then wrote them that regimen and said, okay, this is what I would do for you, Cody, for you, Connor, for you, Connor. I'd use this from Glow Recipe, but then I would pad it with this, this, and this. And that's how those relationships started. And to this day, you can track back everybody in their community to that initial 100 or 300, whatever it was. And that's just such a powerful takeaway for me. And now you look at Glow Recipe, and I mean, they're, 9 figures in revenue, like an absolute darling at Sephora, if not one of the top 3 brands at Sephora. It's incredible.
And quickly, I want to jump back to EMV just for a second. We defined it, this earned media value, because I found this really interesting when we first spoke a couple of years ago. But like Tribe Dynamics gives you like a dollar number. It could be anything, but it's like some sort of metric. And then like what you and your teams do are you guys are like plotting that dollar metric out over time. So it's like you're looking at it in the same way that I might look at a revenue or like revenue attributed to ads. You guys are looking at the media value attributed to all of your influencer campaigns. I think that's nice for people to visualize as we start talking about strategies. It's like that's ultimately how we're measuring it, which I think is incredibly unique.
Yeah. Thank you. And when I was at ColourPop with Amelia, my co-founder, we actually started plotting EMV against the harder metrics. So site traffic, conversion rate, revenue, AOV, and it was absolutely undeniable, the correlation. And keep in mind, and I don't expect everyone to know this, but ColourPop launched at minimum 1 collection a week, like at minimum. So sometimes we were launching 2 or 3 collections a week. And keep in mind, we also belonged to a larger company called Seed Beauty, which incubated the Kardashian brands and a couple of others. which I was over, and so was my co-founder, Amelia. So the statistical significance of this data. So you have all of these brands, like 8 brands launching a collection per week. And we're plotting on each brand, what was the EMV, what was the community size, what was the post potency, meaning like, how potent, how many likes, engagements, etc. What was the post frequency of the community? And then against the revenue, the site traffic, the conversion rate, and then even the ROAS and the CPA. And it was wild. And for every brand, that lead time differed. So like for ColourPop, it was pretty immediate. Like within 4 weeks, if we saw the EMV like week 1 of the month, we'd pretty much know where revenue was going to end up. For other brands, the tail was a little bit longer, but it was this amazing leading indicator. So if we saw that EMV was kind of lagging on a certain collection. So let me back up just a second too. We would seed collections and products like 3 weeks ahead of it being for sale. And whatever that EMV read was would tell us exactly how that collection was going to do. So if that EMV was pretty low for the collection, I would call our CEO and be like, it's going to be bloody. If it was over the top, I would say we underordered on inventory. So what are we going to do?
Will you optimize towards EMV? I want to make like a media buying kind of comparison here. Like we optimize our Facebook ad account based on 1 day click. So if we're going to go in and spend more, we're going to go put more budget into whatever has the best 1 day click. So you're tracking EMV for like your entire program, and then you're getting more granular. You're breaking it down by collection, product type, all that. Are you also doing it on a per creator basis? So like the same way a media buyer is going to go optimize and put more spend into whatever is the best 1 day click and kind of kill whatever is the lowest 1 day click to, lift up the entire account. Are you doing the same thing where you're like, hey, if we want to go spend more on influencer or do more seeding, like let's go optimize towards the creators with the best EMV and like see if we can activate more with those folks, but then B, go find people that are similar to them. And that's like your key metric on an individual basis too?
Yes, that's exactly right. So the EMV contribution per creator. And when we saw creators that really over-indexed on their EMV contribution relative to their size and their post frequency, et cetera, anything we could do to lock them up as an exclusive with the brand, right?
Okay.
I deal with that all the time with my brands now. And I curse Connor all the time. He built the best software in the world that I love, but he also made it so everybody can see what everyone else is doing and who everyone else is working with. So anytime one of my brands find a star, I'm like, oh, it's just a matter of weeks until all their competitors are now.
Oh, okay. So you'll go use the EM. So like if you did seeding or gifting with someone and you see someone shoots up in your EMV rankings, you'll often use that to inform more of like a paid brand ambassador type deal. Okay, exactly. Cool. Exactly.
And then when you do paid, you also look at like EMV ROAS, right?
That's exactly, yes. And that determines who gets rebooked and who doesn't. And then we also, we look at so many things. We also look at, who gave posts outside of what their scope was, right? So if we scoped you for 3 posts, but you gave us 6, we're going to rebook you. I wish I could just like bring all the managers and agents in a room and say, please, like there's so much you could do to get rebooked and get noticed. Yeah. Anyway.
All of us are Haus customers and very big fans. In fact, I've actually been told I talk about Haus more than my own daughter. So what is Haus? Haus is a marketing science and experimentation platform that enables you to measure true incrementality and allocate budget efficiently to maximize growth and profitability. Haus allows you to comprehensively measure your marketing across all channels to measure the true incremental impact of all of your channels on retail, Amazon, DTC, etc. Haus allows you to design and launch experiments in minutes and get results in as little as 2 weeks. So we are all actual customers of Haus. We all use it. I actually got both Connors onto it. I was just such a big fan, and I just couldn't help but share some of the tests that we were running. And I thought it was super cool. And I knew we had a group chat going, and I knew that both of these guys were spending on a lot of different, channels and platforms. And we were all looking at things similarly, but really looking to kind of take a step up. So yeah, if it's good enough for me to sell these guys on it, I think it's good enough for you guys to try out.
As you can tell, we could do a whole episode about Haus, and we probably will at some point, but this is just the ad read. So if you want to add marketing rigor to your organization and make the most impact with your spend, go to haus.io/operators. That's haus.io/operators to learn more. So I do have a question to backtrack slightly. A collection a week you're launching across many brands. You said you're seeding products 3 weeks in advance. I'd love for you to just speak to maybe some more points of that go-to-market strategy. It's just such an insane cadence, and there's so much manual work dealing with all the creators. So what did that look like? And also, you were CMO. You weren't just it was influencer as a cornerstone, but there's a lot going on. So if you could speak to email or anything else, I'd love to hear the playbook.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so let me think of like a really big collection, because we would have, tier A, tier B, tier C. I'll talk about our Sailor Moon collaborations. We did a Sailor Moon collaboration. It sold out in like 2 minutes, and we couldn't get inventory for like 9 months. It was painful, but amazing at the same time. So that go-to-market strategy probably started, I would say, 6 weeks before launch. So we teased it. Now, keep in mind, ColourPop had 10 million followers on Instagram. This was pre-TikTok era. So we were also like a media company in a way, in that way. So we would drop all these breadcrumbs and tease that something exciting was coming on Instagram. And we also conjured up a lot of Reddit communities. I love marketing on Reddit in an organic way. We would see little leaks on Reddit. So all the leaks for ColourPop on Reddit was done by our team. And so we would get the communities talking. And then when we teased something like that, it was amazing that some of the big powerhouse influencers would reach out to us and say, is it true? Are you launching a Sailor Moon collab? What's going on? I want to be the first to get it. So think like the Jeffree Stars back in the day, or this was like pre-Michaela, but that caliber of talent. So then we would put together, okay, here are the powerhouses, like, 1 million, 5 million, 10 million followers. Not that following is everything, but just to give you an idea, that we think are really going to resonate with this collection. Let's make sure they feel really special and that they are gifted to and not seated well ahead of everybody else. Like they are in on the secret. They have something under embargo. They can talk to our product development team, etc. So we would gift maybe 5 weeks before launch. And then from there, we would seed 3 weeks before launch, and we would ask for this content back to us before launch so we could use it in paid. And a lot of times, this was like the wild, wild west. This is like 2018, 2019, where you didn't pay for usage back then, which is like insane to me to even think. So we got all this content and didn't have to pay for it. Now you would. And we would start loading up our email and then paid social ads based on this content, which was really cool. Imagine having your launch day and you already have all the YouTube cuts and Instagram cuts before the products even hit the site. So that was a really, really amazing way to get a huge volume of content to get the creators on board before the product had even launched. And then also let some of them drop the exclusive. So we would say, okay, we're announcing at 10 a.m. on Thursday. You can go at 10:05. You can go at 10:10, etc. So that would conjure up a lot of buzz. But yeah, with ColourPop, the email marketing program and the paid program, I feel like was so carried by influencer and social, which I think is different for a lot of your audience and a lot of the brands that you guys talk to and interview and work with. And, both Connors, I don't know that your go-to-market looks like that. Maybe it does, but for us, it was really about getting the community excited 5 to 6 weeks before launch and then taking all that content and blasting it day of.
So are they posting then? Are they like, so you said some of these people you're giving exclusive and you're saying, all right, we're launching at 10 a.m. like on our site and to our own channels on, Friday at 10 a.m. And some of these people are going to like launch right after that and drive that big, traffic blitz to the site, that big pop in sales. Are some of these people then, because you're dropping kind of teaser stuff into these communities, you're getting some buzz going. Are you also telling some of the influencers and being kind of like, hey, like this batch of influencers, we're going to have you post pre-launch. This batch, we're going to have you post after launch. And then giving them, I know you said you're not big on briefing, but were you giving them some sort of brief to be like, listen, it's not going to be live at this point, but like you can still post and get some buzz to get to like, how did that look? Because obviously you don't want someone to post and be like, go get it, and then it's not live. So how are you handling like the pre-post versus it's launched and now people are posting?
Yeah. So we would designate a batch of creators and we would say, okay, you're allowed to go live with your review 3 days before launch. And obviously, they're just as invested to not send their audience down a dead end. So this is, when it's available, where it's available, etc. And then, sorry, what was your second question, Connor?
I was just asking how you split the pre-launch versus the post-launch. So it's you had one batch and you were giving them some sort of guidelines to be like, all right, this is going to be 3 days before the launch. It's not live yet, or you're not even doing that.
No, yeah, we would say, you have to announce, you cannot announce before this date. You need to announce within this time frame. And then this is where the availability of the product is. And that was it. And I think that was like so the beauty of the relationship too, because it was a little nerve-wracking for us. So when you think about a Jeffree Star or some of these huge YouTubers with millions and millions of followers, they got that audience because of their honesty. So there would be times that we would say, oh, we might get a bad review. Like this might go live and this person might say, hey, ColourPop or Kylie is dropping this. I think it sucks.
Yeah.
And that happened a few times. So no guidelines. It was fun. They were free to say what they wanted. And then in terms of how we picked them, at the end of my time there, we were so lucky in that the demand was so high that we had so much inbound of like, I want to be the first to announce when you guys do a palette, or I want to be the first to announce when you do a collaboration with such and such. But before that, demand was so high with all the creators that kind of wanted to announce with us. It was really curated of who we thought would resonate with each collection. And when you think about too, like having 10 million followers, we got to a point where we were bigger than a lot of the creators. So kind of giving them that clout of allowing them to, break news or break a launch. It did a lot for their engagement and their following and their credibility. So that was a really nice, symbiotic relationship as well.
We did that recently. We were working on our outreach program. So when we're reaching out to new creators, like what is our messaging? And like one of my thoughts was like, hey, let's just like talk about the other people that we've worked with. We had a general message of like, we're Ridge, this is the mission, this is what we do. And I was like, let's say we've worked with, Travis Barker, Marquez Brownlee, PewDiePie, like we've got some of the biggest names in the space. And what we were looking at that point was like just response rate. And it seemed like not only were people more likely to respond, but they were more likely to engage just because I think we seem cooler to work with, kind of to your point that we are of some value to them as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting that you touch on that, because earlier in our conversation, when Cody, you were saying like, how do you decide how much gifting and seeding to do versus paid, et cetera? Some of the brands that we take on, and I do not put Ridge in this category. I think you guys are absolutely the coolest and very much on the cutting edge of what you do. But like a legacy brand, like we have some brands that have been around for 60 years and they didn't start investing in influencer and creators until this year. And can you imagine? So they're quite behind. And we'll say, hey, you need those cornerstone people to demonstrate that you are cool to the other 99% of the community. And we do need to lead with that in outreach and include that content. So sometimes I'll, talk my shit on when I see a brand working with Alex Earl because I know what she costs and I'm just like, oh my God. But then there are times where I'm like, you do need to cut that check to re-enter the conversation. So it just depends.
I love I want to call something out just real quick that you mentioned that I've been really emphasizing with my team, and it's the lead in time to these product drops, right? It's not just launches on a product page. You shoot out a few emails and like product drops over. Like there's a huge front end to it going live. There's a huge back end to it going live. And all the work you do on the front end should hopefully help build out the funnels and the assets that you are putting into your owned and operated channels from the day you launch. And like we're working to like start teasing and dropping to our community with influencers like 2 months ahead of time. We're not there yet, but we're working towards that. And I think that's so important for people to take away. Like these moments of new product drops can be so much bigger and can have such a better sustained performance if you tease it out to influencers, to a community, well ahead of time. So I think that's something we were not doing very well a year and a half ago. We're getting better at it. We're not there yet. And I think that's a really good takeaway for listeners to start thinking like 2 months out ahead of launch.
You say listeners, but me too. That's like, I just wrote it down. We talked a little bit about this, teasing pre-launch. We did it on an episode a couple of weeks ago, and I took a bunch of notes from Connor. But Ashton, everything you said, I'm like, oh yeah, we have to be better capitalizing on that. We've got like semblances of it. We did a sweepstakes last year where we give away a Jeep, and we did work with a handful of creators who we had the Jeep in their video on the day of launch, which was like really cool, but logistically hard, especially. And that's why I was asking about like the weekly launches. I'm like, operationalizing that is no easy task.
No, I'm still recovering. I'm kidding. It's funny. Our agency, you did not ask this, but it's just a funny anecdote. So our agency is that original ColourPop team, like half of them are with us and the other half are at Skims, actually Kim's Line Skims. And, we have trouble recruiting sometimes and getting people on board with working on multiple brands when we recruit from singular brands. So like if you were I'm just making it up, Kosas, we didn't recruit anybody from Kosas. And it clicked for us. We were like, oh my God, where we worked being on like 8 brands that all launched every single week. There's just a level of stamina that I don't think is normal for the average marketer. So we think about that a lot because it was so normal to us. But every time I share this with somebody outside, they're like, a launch a week across 8 brands. Yeah. A launch a week across 8 brands.
Just wild. Yeah. It makes me feel a little bit better about our 2 a month.
Right. Yeah. I think the same thing about agency people too. I have an agency background. I know Connor Rowling does too. I always joke like agency people age in dog years, and it sounds like that's what was going on at ColourPop as well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it was the ride. Like, don't get me wrong, it was the ride of a lifetime, and we learned so quickly because of that launch cadence. So I definitely don't take it for granted. But I always forget when I tell people outside of the ColourPop world that cadence. The reaction never ceases to amaze me.
All right, so I have a question, slightly switching gears, but not on how you measure like the funnel steps of seeding programs. I think it's fascinating. I think sometimes when people think about like earn me value and like brand and not performance stuff, they don't necessarily track it. But I feel like you are as data driven, if not more, compared to like most growth marketers I've seen. It's like, what do you track in terms of the funnel steps that go into that process? And what is the process as well?
Yeah. Okay. So what do we track? We track a number of things. So first is that opt-in rate. So how many people are opting in when you reach out to them into your seeding program? That's obviously a super easy one, but it's really interesting. And it's so funny when I talk to a lot of brands, they expect that their opt-in rate will be 100%. It's really, yeah. Okay. I love the laughs. Thank you. I'm like, oh, wow. Okay. So it never is. And what do those opt-ins have in common? And then we track. So, I mean,
but what's so cool is you'll test things. Like I remember I saw on Instagram one day, like you tested an image in ours, or you'll test different copy and different things. So it's like, you'll be very data driven about even that copy that goes into there.
Well, exactly. And I think that's why I love performance marketers and moving them into influencer. I love people with an email marketing background, because I think an email marketing background lends itself so well to this when you think about a funnel, because that's all it is it's kind of a social, think of it as like a social driven welcome series, if you will, like a social creator first driven welcome series. So we got you to opt into the program. So think of it like an email capture. Like I got you to sign up for our email list. Okay, great. That's like step one of so much that we have to do. And I think that's where most programs fall flat, is they are like, okay, someone opted in and I gave them product. Great. My community grew and they have the product. Now I'm just going to sit back and measure it. And it is not like that at all. That's the easiest step. So yeah, similar to how you would look at a welcome series. Okay, great. We got someone to opt in, sign up, and receive product. Now what? What we send or don't send them depends on the actions or inactions that they took. And then what did those actions look like? So for instance, if I see a creator that opted into our seeding program and we just get a story of the box that's like, thanks so much, Jones Road, for the gift, and then we never hear from them again. Okay, we need to put them in a funnel and decide how we want to treat that. Conversely, if I get another creator that we opted into the seeding program and I, get that story of thank you so much, Jones Road, and then all of a sudden I get 4 in-feed reels of doing tutorials and talking about how much I love that they love the product, that's going to be treated a very different way and go into a very different flow. So yeah, I think that's the easiest way to look at it for growth marketers. That just clicked for me is it's an email flow. Like it's the same exact principles of that acquisition and retention and nurturing and, categorizing and segmenting and personalizing, but it's just through Instagram, DM, or email, depending on how the brand wants to work. And with an actual person. So it's tough to scale. Like there's so many software services out there that say, hey, you want to get your product in the hands of 4,000 people, we can do it in a month. And there's a time and a place for that, for sure. I've definitely used those, but I question the retention and the retention and the quality of the relationship long term.
Yeah, it feels like SEO a little bit, like even just like working with you guys where it's like, it's a very slow buildup. It's really gradual. And then 6 months later you check in and you're like, oh shit, like we're building, like this is, these cohorts are compounding and they're really stacking on top of each other.
Yeah, Cody, thank you. You're like, prompt me more on this because I'm like, what am I missing? This is my life every day. So it just seems, like the back of my hand.
You know it too well.
We look at everything as a cohort, right? So we have different cohorts of users and what do they have in common? So we could be working with Jones Road and say, okay, for this cohort of acquisition for net new community members, we want to go after females over 50 that have kids and live in the Midwest. Like we really want to over-index there. And then we want to break between YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram. And then we'll monitor that cohort over time. And then if we see that, cohort A is really overperforming all the other cohorts, great. That's going to inform our acquisition strategy going forward. I'm just like a growth marketer. I mean, and I think that is the difference of GateMaker, because we have so many growth marketers on our team. So we take those principles and apply them to creators and influencers. And I think I mean, this is a good topic, and I'm really curious what all of you guys think about this. If influencer and creators should live with growth or brand or both. Like, I think that's like the debate with all of our brands right now. But when it lives with brand, I don't think it gets that view on it. Everyone's really precious about who they gift product to and who they work with and who they contract. And we're not at all. We follow the data. One thing I'll say, and then I'll be quiet because I could talk about this forever. But with Tribe Dynamics, they'll show us community sizes for every brand, like how many people are talking of your community on a monthly basis. And then for the year, what is that community size? And Rare Beauty, Selena Gomez's brand, I think they have sometimes some months they have 6,000 creators mentioning them. And that's just what Tribe tracks. So it's probably much larger than that. But when you think about having 6,000, think of it as as a customer database. If you had 6,000 purchases in a month, how large does your database have to be to do that? So when you think about 6,000 active users in a month or active community members, they probably have on a yearly basis, 18,000, I would say. 18,000, you are not going after people that are on brand, right? That's just impossible. So when you think about their acquisition strategy and their retention strategy, I think there's a lot that can be learned from that.
Just mic drop. Just drop the mic. That was great. That was great.
We are super excited to talk today about one of our sponsors, Aftersell. All three of us, Jones Road Beauty, Hexclad, and Ridge Wallet, are customers of Aftersell. If you're selling on Shopify, you need to find ways to boost your average order value. One of the best ways to do this is cross-selling and upselling, and there are a lot of different ways and places you can do this. One of the best places to do it is right when that conversion is happening, and that is exactly what Aftersell facilitates for you. So what actually is Aftersell? Aftersell is a widget that you install on your website, and on the post-purchase page, right after someone's completed their conversion, they're basically getting this upsell and or cross-sell. It's super seamless. It's one click. And it adds it to the order. They do not have to go through checkout again. It's really just free, not free, but it's incremental revenue that you're getting from someone that's already bought from you. One thing I love about Aftersell is you can decide to optimize it a ton or not at all. Either way, it's going to drive you a ton of incremental revenue. And if you have the team and the bandwidth and you want to optimize it, you can do all sorts of analysis on which products are most likely to be bought with other products, doing those sequential order and market basket analyses. And you can literally build out different funnels, as many as you'd want for different products, depending on what that first ordered product was, and then upsell them super intentionally based on that first order product. So love Aftersell. It's driven 6 figures of incremental revenue for us in a very short period of time. And I highly recommend it. If you want to check them out, head over to aftersell.com.
Yeah, no, Connor, just one thing real quickly. What I love is you not only look at data driven, you can forecast. What got me when you walk through is the same way I forecast our revenue for the business. And we look at cohorts and we can say, hey, in 6 months from now, here's how much revenue I think we're going to get from these people we acquired in January. You're doing the same thing on an EMV basis. You'll say, hey, we sent out 1,000. We got this many people to post in 6 months. Here's the EMV we get. If we keep sending out 1,000 every month and stacking those on top, here's where we think you'll be at in a year.
Yeah.
I just love that.
And I think we were pretty spot on with you. I remember saying well, yeah, your numbers are looking great. But yeah, we do that with everybody, which is really fun. And I think prior to EMV is not a new term, but Tribe is, I don't know, maybe 10 years old, but I don't think it really caught wind in beauty and fashion until maybe 5 or 6 years ago. It just quantifies something that's been so hard to quantify. So I'm not saying that EMV, like Connor, you were talking about how it has a dollar figure in front of it. One of the biggest questions I get is well, $1 of EMV doesn't equal $1 of revenue. No shit, I know, but at least we have it on a level playing field, and we can track it over time and predict that way. But Cody, because we are working towards an EMV KPI, have you plotted community size and EMV with the business growth, and have you seen those correlations?
I have not. I definitely have not. I did see, just in prepping for this, going to Tribe, our EMV growth for the year is pretty similar to our revenue growth for the year. And again, that's just one data point. It's slightly low. So I think our revenue growth is higher. I do think we're very much paid driven. And I think, and maybe you can help me with this, but continuing to try to find signs that that there is a correlation and that we should continue to invest more in that. And, because it's obviously, I've seen the data. I just haven't necessarily found it or taken the time to find the correlations for us in our business. but want to continue to invest in things and upper funnel, harder to measure things for us.
Yeah.
I do want to call out, Cody, you were talking about how cool it is to be able to project the EMV performance of these cohorts. And I'm just going to make fun of you. It's like, that's really your love language, dude. We're like,
very much. So much. I dream about cohort.
Yeah. I didn't want that to be ignored. I'm like,
no, I think any opportunity to make fun of me, you should.
Spoken like a true consumables CMO. Cohorts are my love language.
Totally.
Well, should we dig more into the brand versus growth? Because I think that's a very interesting one. Like I think Cody, it reports to your brand team. For us, influencer reports into growth, but there's like a very clear dotted line to brand as well. So I'm curious, Ashton, like what your thoughts are if you think.
Well, the difference, Ashton knows this, is the brand team is my wife, so it really reports to me. So I get final say, right?
Yeah. Sorry, Connor. We were saying what's my take on it?
I want to guess what your take is, and then I want you to get your take. So my guess, because you're very data driven. Everything you're optimizing towards a quantitative KPI. It's not just like how does this feel. I'm guessing you think it should report into growth, but I'm curious what your thoughts are and what you actually where it actually should report from your POV.
Yeah. I think. Cody, I think we talked about this on Twitter, so I don't know if this is a fully baked thought, but I'll bake it with you guys in real time. I think that your marketing leader, whoever it is, should be really, really versed in creators and influencer, and like have both sides of the fence of like, yeah, it does matter how this feels and who we pick out for those marquee moments. But then view community through a growth lens. And I think both need to report into that person. Like I guess like this is where I differ a little bit is, I feel like so many brands say, okay, I have paid, earned, and owned. And where do paid and earned and owned roll up into? But I almost look at like earned as like the center of the universe and everything revolves around it because it's feeding content, it's feeding awareness. I mean, it's feeding paid and owned channels at this point from my point of view. So I guess I don't have like a bifurcated answer of one or the other. I feel like whoever is sitting at the top has to like live and breathe this stuff and understand how it services growth and brand. Yeah. If that makes sense. I don't know. Does that answer resonate for you guys? I mean, this is like all I think about and talk about all day. So I'm like, am I making sense to the world outside my head?
It sparks a question for me. Because I think a lot of people will chalk up influencer to brand because it can often, well, one, it's difficult to measure, but two, I think a lot of people don't feel it is ROI positive on its own. Like it's not from an EMV perspective, but literally generating dollars. It might not be a profitable program. And that's why it's like, oh, it's brand now. Like we're like, we're growing awareness. Yeah, we're talking about affinity, et cetera, et cetera. So there's obviously a way to do profitable influencer. When ColourPop does $300 million without spending a dollar, like clearly it is working. Do you think it always has to be profitable? And could that be a distinction between whether it's growth and brand?
Yeah, that's a great question. No, I don't think it always needs to be profitable, but I guess where I have a hard time with this is how are we defining profitable? Because then this gets us into like the attribution question, right?
I just mean from the way I'm thinking about it right now is literally just from the highest degree, like not talking about measuring it, just like if you are giving an influencer $1 or you're giving them product, like you are in some way over some time period profiting off of that. And we don't have to worry about attribution or measurement or any. So it's really just like an ethereal conceptual idea.
Let's say revenue is down, right? At Jones Road, or I would imagine HexCloud and other places. Like I would imagine the CEO is probably going to the head of growth or something like that. Or, to one of Connor's like, hey, what's going on? Like, are we not performing as well? Versus I don't think I am necessarily going to the brand team and going to influence their team and saying like, hey, revenue, like it wouldn't be my first place to go. And I know at ColourPop it was.
It was.
And that was the thing. I don't find, at least in the common direct-to-consumer brand, that's probably not the typical structure.
Well, and if you give someone a quantitative KPI that they own, right? It's like, all right, CRO lead, you own conversion rate. Paid media lead, you own revenue attributed to ads and one-day click ROAS. If you're giving the brand team a metric, let's say it's EMV, or let's say it's attributed revenue through UTMs or whatever it is, maybe it's impressions, CPMs. Like I don't want to give that I don't want to give a quantitative KPI necessarily to like the brand team. I think that should be given to the growth team, and like that's how we do it. And the brand team is still super involved. Like basically we have like what we call like a monthly slush fund that the brand team can use on influencers for any sort of like seasonal activation. So it's like, hey, it's LGBTQ month. We're going to go activate with these creators. We're going to create a big brand moment, but we're still making sure they're doing all of the kind of performance, paid media driven things. But at the end of the day, like I want a performance marketer owning any sort of quantitative KPI that their channel owns, which is why I think it should probably roll up into the growth team if you are optimizing off of an EMV or any sort of metric that you're quantifying.
I like that answer a lot. I feel like that answers my question. It doesn't have to be like on an independent basis ROI positive, but you have to be optimizing towards some quantifiable goal. That's what makes it growth. I think we've reached a good conclusion.
But I want my brand team to be able to do that too. Like if my brand team, like we had SEO on the brand team, like we have social channels. Like I don't want it just like their job to be like, we have to post on brand stuff. Like they're going to do our out of home, and like they're going to measure our out of home and be able to show it. They're going to work with our data team to show it has some type of incremental lift on our business. And it might not always be directly revenue, but like I do want brand teams to be, data driven as well.
What do your brand team report on, Cody? Like what are their KPI? Obviously an EMV, but what else do you have them report on?
Work in progress, I would say. Obviously social, growth and things like that, and influence are the main ones. We're just now like dipping our toes into doing some serious, out of home and stuff like that. And so like I will work with them to help kind of measure some of these things. And we're not doing like surveys yet, but like, awareness surveys, but I think something in the future I would like to. So I don't know what the KPI is. Do you have any recommendations on a non-EMV perspective of what you would have them do?
I mean, for me, the chief KPI is community size when it comes to a brand team. But I think you can measure that outside of Tribe. There's you don't need to be a Tribe customer to keep tabs on that, because like the core pillar for me is, do we agree the more people talking about you on the internet is a net positive? Like if we all believe in that, then we should be measuring that every single month. And is it going up or down? And are you retaining the people that talk about you? And I think that should be everybody's KPI, by the way, not just brand, like product development, et cetera. But yeah, that's a good one. That's a good point.
That's a good point. That's not really just an influencer thing. Like growth teams should have do you have more active customers, and have some type of way to measure active, versus churn. And then brand team can do you have, active people talking about you?
Mm-hmm.
So I have a similar question that's not influencer related, but like your retention team at ColourPop or any other examples, I imagine has a lot of similarities just in terms of like how you guys creating content, how are you keeping people engaged? They might not be speaking about you online, but they're at least interested in hearing whatever the next message is. So like what was the strategy around retaining that community from a retention perspective?
Yeah, I honestly, I think that retention strategy was in the product development strategy. And so I think something that was really paramount at ColourPop is that influencer and creators were everybody's job, not just the marketing team or the influence. And I think that like showed in the, getting to that revenue without Facebook or Google, et cetera. But we were so good. I mean, okay, let me back up for a second. The brand was vertically integrated. So when I tell you we could concept a product and then bring it to market within 6 weeks, if we really wanted to, I mean, that was an insane competitive advantage. A normal timeline was like 12 to 15 weeks. But we could move faster if we needed. But we were insane social listeners. So when we saw that the community was really excited about something or giving feedback saying, I love this, but I wish it came in this color, or did you see, because ColourPop was a very budget-friendly brand, like did you see Tom Ford or Armani launched XYZ? Like where's ColourPop's version of this? We would listen and answer in real time. So I don't think that the retention was like some amazing email marketing program or some insane targeting on Facebook when we ultimately did introduce that, or even there were creator strategies, and I can get into that in a second, but I really think it was the product development and
right.
Making the community feel like they drove it with us. And I think ultimately ColourPop's struggles today is from not listening to that community.
Yeah, interesting. So the product itself was content. What I talk about with my team is like, because we don't have a weekly cadence. We're like maybe closer to bi-monthly, something like that. So we have to be trying to like create a message, some form of content that is not product related for email, SMS, et cetera. Whereas you guys are like, the content is the product that you guys are developing, which I think is incredibly interesting.
Yeah. Ashton, do you have any sense of like one thing I love to do, and we'll probably talk about this in a later episode, like we have this whole angle of like customer experience from a growth marketer's perspective. I love using own media channels to bring light to some of these amazing organic pieces of content. And it's something we're trying to do a better job of, like making sure the influencer team is talking to our retention director to make, like, I'm looking at this video right now. This guy made a pancake on a hex-clad double burner griddle. This is through product seeding. It's a stuffed pancake with bacon, cheese, and eggs. It's awesome. It has 16,000 likes. I don't know how many views, but it's awesome. Tons of comments. I'm like, we should totally promote this to our own. Like, we have over 1 million active engagers. Like, this is stuff they would love to see. Maybe they want to try making it themselves. Like, do you have like any thoughts on what that cadence should look like, or like how often you should be using your own channels, which are generally seen as revenue driving channels, to put out what I would call like more engaging customer experience driven content?
Oh, all the time, like every day. Like that was the funnel for us. And what a reward to the creator to be featured everywhere by your brand. And I feel like, what great positive reinforcement for that creator to keep creating content. And how can you, like not just put it on the feed, but if it can go in email, et cetera, and have their handle everywhere. So you're really promoting them and helping them grow. But then signaling to the community, like, make sick content and you will be featured everywhere. And I remember, actually, that's Fashion Nova. I mean, that was Fashion Nova's strategy. I'm obsessed with Fashion Nova. That was who I benched when I was in beauty. Like we got to a point at ColourPop where we were doing better than the beauty vertical, that there was no one really to look at the time. And so we started benching Fashion Nova. And it was wild to me that their strategy was seed like crazy and then reward by being featured on their Instagram feed and their website. And I don't know if you guys remember this time, but like 2019, 2018, Fashion Nova was like also a place for all the rappers to recruit for their music videos. And there was a lot going on to be featured on Fashion Nova's grid. But it was incredible, that kind of reward system of like, make amazing content about our brand and you're going to be on our grid. And the people watching our grid and recruiting from our grid is like end up in a Drake video. So that was literally, it was a fun time.
So what, they were 16?
What?
I said, what, they're 16?
Say that again?
Too soon? Oh, I don't know if you guys have been following Drake Kendrick. I said, oh, they were 16.
I was following that, Cody.
So next, we're going to talk about two things: customer service and artificial intelligence. Our next sponsor, Richpanel, is a platform that combines the best of AI and humans to respond faster, manage all channels, and scale your customer service. They do this in a number of different ways, but their ultimate goal is for you to get every agent responding as if they're your best agent. First, my favorite part, which actually isn't AI related, is better self-serve tools so that your customers and prospects can find the information they need without ever submitting a ticket. But when they do submit a ticket, they have artificial intelligence that learn from your previous interactions. So it's not a ChatGPT wrapper that's just going to rattle off whatever it thinks is the best way to respond to a customer. It's actually going to understand what are historical interactions you've had to recommend and automate the responses to customers submitting new tickets, as well as new ways to augment your current agents so that they can respond more efficiently and empathetically. If you're interested in Richpanel and bringing AI to your customer service teams, visit richpanel.com.
All right, I have a few like other questions I really want to get to, just for interest of time, just kind of take it there. So number one, this might be a hot take. You've got a few of them. What is your view on PR in 2024? Does it do anything for brands, for direct to consumer brands? If somebody was going to, go to market or looking for growth, is that even anything that people should be looking into hiring a press team?
I hate PR. I think it's like talking about yourself, for yourself, to yourself in 2024. But that's just me. That's my hot take. I can understand the value. Well, I mean, here's the thing. All the publishers are all affiliates now. So it just doesn't hold the same credibility that it used to. I hope that doesn't happen to the creator economy, because that is going to be, and I don't think it will. Like, we're seeing that with TikTok Shop, and that's a whole thing. But yeah, I think it's talking to yourself, for yourself, about yourself. And the only time I could see it maybe being beneficial is if you're looking to raise a huge round, and that's just something that VCs get off on, and you're a venture-backed business. But that's really the only case I can make for it. Sample size of one. I know it's a hot take, but I don't like it.
Do you guys have, Hexcloud and Rich, do you guys have press teams at all? Do you work with anyone? Is it a focus?
We engaged with a PR consultant for the rollout of the MKBHD partnership. So it's just a couple months. I liked it. I mean, ultimately we got a couple cool features. We wouldn't have otherwise ended up in the information. We got like a deep feature with Forbes, and there was like a video with Sean, our CEO, and Marquez, and then there was like some follow-on press after that. For this like flagship partnership, I think it was totally worth it. But as an always on strategy, I don't see how it is going to like serve the goals of the business to like grow profitably. I do totally understand the point of like, it feels like it's talking about yourself to yourself. Feels awesome to share internally or with your board or your VCs or whatever. But at least for us, I don't think it's like really moving the needle from a dollar perspective.
How about HexCloud? Do you guys do any press? Any
We
PR?
do it, or it doesn't report into brand. We do a ton of publisher affiliate though, and that's been a major channel for us. And what I'm finding is that a lot of these publications that were maybe traditionally PR are starting to do more and more hybrid deals where it's like a flat fee to get featured, but then it's a percentage of kickback based on revenue, which I love. We'll do some like I was involved. We just had this Benny Blanco collaboration with custom product. And like we did a PR push to kind of like drive some more buzz around that. That did not, we did add a performance perspective where we were giving them a URL with a UTM attached. And we do a lot of PR, but I'm not as in the know on, we don't see a huge revenue kick from it unless it's from those like, hey, Good Housekeeping, it's like this flat fee plus a percentage of sales. And we'll do some of those in like the holiday roundup type of pushes.
Yeah. The best thing we did to get like placements in publications was we tripled our affiliate fee. So it's like, okay, yeah, it's like, that's where the industry has gone basically. But yeah, I think that's interesting. I do have a question that I want to squeeze in here if that's cool with you, Cody.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just because I brought up MKBHD, we're a couple months into this like flagship partnership. He's an equity owner. He's sitting on the board now. HexCloud has Gordon. JonesRoad has Bobby. We definitely pulled some inspo from both those people. So like, Ashton, I'd love to hear your experience or like any recommendations or ideas on how do we parlay these like the flagship partnerships and pull it down, the true influencers, and pull it down on like a more evergreen strategy, or how do we use that to pull through seeding or gifting or just general influencer strategies?
How do you pull down those marquee, like how do you lean on those marquee partnerships?
Yeah, like I'm asking for Ridge. I'm seeking advice. What are ways that we can further leverage the MKBHD partnership in our influencer marketing?
Yeah. So I think the credibility that comes with that and your initial outreach to net new would be huge. And then what do you, have you like co-designed a gifting experience that's unique to that you can recruit like more of their community or people that follow them?
So I have a question about that. Would you design a gifting experience for our evergreen products or so no, we haven't done that.
Yeah, I absolutely would. And just like give me some bullet points on like what is included in the partnership that you have with them. Like what are they on the hook for?
Yeah. So it's super deep. We have a bunch of integrations with them throughout the year. So YouTube integration, social posts, we get rights to all that content. We just launched our first collab product. So MKBHD branded Ridge Goods. We have signature products coming out later this year. So custom designed like net new silhouettes with Marquez. So we get all of that. I mentioned we have ad rights to all of the content. We're going to be pulling him down into like wholesale displays. We're launching in Best Buy. He's going to play a key role in that. And those are kind of the flagship points. And then it's really up to us to kind of make of that what we will.
Yeah. The other thing I would say is what like co-branded experiences can you put together that just money could not buy? Like your community could not have access to that experience. And maybe you do 4 of those a year and you reward your most engaged community members that are really driving your post frequency, or you can do giveaways on social. I mean, similar to the Jeep thing that you did, but that was huge for us. So we would do, when I was in-house, we would do collaborations with big names in beauty, like huge makeup artists, like celebrity makeup artists. And then we would offer, like Patrick Ta, has his own line and is killing it at Sephora. But before he had his own line, he was a celebrity makeup artist doing everybody you could ever imagine. And we would do master classes with Patrick and invite like really big influencers, because they could not, even though they had all the money in the world, they could not pay for that experience. And we would provide that experience with him. And it was incredible. And then the EMV we would get from all the posting and like, thank you so much, ColourPop, for putting this together for us. It was just this insane flywheel. And then developing gifting experiences with Patrick. We did like one-off podcast interviews with him, going deep into his life on like really personal stuff that he's never spoke about. I mean, we went really, really narrow and deep there, just giving our community access to him that they never otherwise would have had.
Totally. Yeah. I would love to do some sort of like creator conference. Like the masterclass is a really cool idea. And Marquez playing a role in that, I think would be really cool. So, Connor and Hexcloud, you guys have Gordon. Like what are some of the ways that you guys are leveraging him across channels?
Yeah, I mean, Gordon's in all of our channels, especially in paid. Like we lean on him a ton in paid social. He is like the premier figure, like in all, like I said yesterday on the podcast, you know, TV is now our second highest spending top of funnel channel across linear and streaming. You know, our TV spot that we produce that we've been running now for like, it's honestly been the only spot we've ran, especially across linear. Like it's hugely featured on Gordon. So anyone that comes in through that top of funnel channel, they immediately are getting that Gordon social proof. Very featured in paid social. You know, we get to shoot with him multiple times per year. So we're constantly getting new content from him, which you'll start to, you know, see popping up for some different product categories in the next few months. We're also leveraging him for product drops. Like, hey, we have this product coming live on this day. Like we want you to post and use this link to do that. So he's in our own media channels. I mean, we're featuring him very heavily everywhere. As a follow-up to that question though, I wanted to ask Ashton, because we really started like scaling our product seeding program beginning of last year. And now we are like, to your point of like, you see that start to compound over time. Like we are totally seeing that where all the folks that we seeded, like we have blown our impression goals through product seeding out of the water. And a huge reason is because it's starting to compound. Like we already hit our impression goal for the year in the first quarter, which is amazing. But, I have this hunch that part of the reason, it's not a hunch, I know it's a fact, but it's hard to quantify because I don't have a before Gordon and an after Gordon, that a major reason that we have such a good hit rate on posting is because people know we work with Gordon and they want to be in Gordon's good graces. And a great example of that is we were talking to this creator named Susie Vaval. She's OnlyPans on Instagram, super engaging page. She's awesome. And like we were negotiating a brand partnership deal with her. It's awesome. And we decided to pass on the brand partnership deal, but we ended up like just gifting her a bunch of product. And like I know for a fact she loves Gordon because she posts about it all the time. She was like at Idiot Sandwich, like I love Gordon. I can't believe I got to meet him. And now we've got like, we haven't paid her. We've product seeded with her. She's posted about us a bunch, pure organic seeding. That doesn't happen if we don't work with Gordon, I don't think. Do you have a sense, Ashton, of like, do you have any before and afters where, all right, we weren't working with this big creator and this was our hit rate on posting, and then we signed this big creator and now our hit rate went to this? Like how much of a lift can having a big brand ambassador affect the hit rate on your product seeding program?
Yeah, hugely. That's such a good call. Hugely. And it's so funny. I think I was talking my shit on Twitter with Cody about this. I'd love to see like a brand that had a successful celebrity partnership, and everyone replied saying Hexcloud, Gordon Ramsay. And I was like, that's a good example. Yes, absolutely. And that's something that we do with a lot of our brands. It's like, okay, we're going to run your gifting and seeding program, and we run it in a very, very quantitative way. But we also need to pay some big fish to get all the recipients of the gifting and seeding program excited. And we have that before and after. Or conversely, L'Occitane is one of our clients. L'Occitane is like a legacy brand that's been around forever. And they have this hand cream, like just kind of it's a great hand cream, but just a simple hand cream. And we gift it like crazy, and it does very well because people love the product. 60 years doesn't lie. But then this hand cream went viral in December, and I'm talking like 75 million views within a week. And they like completely blew past all of their holiday projections. The sales were wild. But when I tell you the performance of their gifting and seeding program like tripled after that, and it lasted for like at least 90 days. I mean, that was so cool to see. So it can be done with a marquee partnership. It can be done with a stellar piece of content that just goes nuts. I mean, Cody, I'd be dying to know what your gifting and seeding stats would look like back when Meredith went viral with that.
Oh yeah. I mean, everybody wanted it. We were getting so much reach out after we went viral. So absolutely.
Yes. Wait, and actually, Connor, that would be a question for you, is what does your inbound look like? I'm sure with the Gordon partnership, do you get a lot of creators reaching out to you saying, hey, I want to try this?
Oh my God, it's insanity. Except everyone reaches out to us like, hey, like we want to do this deal with you. And then they're like, oh, our in-feed rate is 15K per post. And I'm like, fuck you. I'm not paying you that. And then, so we've kind of built out, like everyone wants to get paid, right? Now it's like we have a whole messaging flow of like, if someone asks for this, we put them into product seeding. But yeah, it's insanity. The inbox of our influencer director is crazy with all the creators and influencers that reach out.
That's such a great sign. And Cody, going back to the KPI for the brand team, that would be a KPI I'd want to track. Like how much income am I getting to receive product?
Like that.
Sorry, do you have to?
I have one more question before I have to go. And I know Connor asked a good question, pick your brain, but I got one. All right. Putting you on the spot, because you work with us, you know the ins and outs of our program. If you had to recommend one thing on the influencer side that we should be doing, that you think this is just like the lowest hanging fruit, or you're like, guys, why don't you do this? What would it be?
Yeah, you guys really need an always on paid strategy. It doesn't need to be crazy, but I would love to see like you cycling in some paid ambassadors on a monthly and quarterly basis. Specifically to see how that would affect your gifting and seeding rate, similar to what we were just talking about. I think you guys, your product is so good and the demand is so there that you're not going to die without it, where some of my brands will say you will literally die if you don't do this. But I think it would really, really turbocharge what you have going on.
Yeah, you think it would be like fuel and we'd grow a lot faster with it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, I feel like we've been slow to it and just been dipping our toes in too slowly. So let's do it. Awesome. All right. Do you guys have anything else? I got a few minutes. Any other questions for Ashton?
Who's the premier, like stemming off that a little bit, who would you, maybe you can't say this, maybe you want to keep it under wraps so none of Cody's competitors hear this, but who would be like the premier person to do that, do you think, for Jones Road?
Oh God. For you guys, I would go so hard on Ariel Charnas and Britt Xavier. They cost a pretty penny though, so we could maybe find people that are...
Isn't Ariel Charnas canceled?
No, that was a long time ago.
Long time ago? She got uncanceled?
2020, like we moved past it.
Yeah.
And it was for something silly. She like didn't wear a mask.
Who is the second one? Because I'm not familiar with them. I got to write it down.
Britt Xavier. Let me put it.
Okay.
I love her. But that's not to say that we couldn't look like for like future Brits and Ariels. But that's who I think would kill it for your brand. I have a question for you, Connor. I wanted to know your gifting and seeding program. Do you run it 100% in-house?
No, we don't. We kind of built out the strategy internally, and we work with an agency called Align Growth that helps execute and facilitate it. Marissa from their team is an absolute killer, and she's the one that like keeps the lights on in that side of the house. So we've kind of like worked with her to build out like the process, like